You learned American history in school. You memorized the dates, the wars, the presidents. You probably think you know the rough shape of how this country became what it is. You don't. Because there is a chapter so violent, so deliberate, so embarrassing to the people in power that they didn't just ignore it. They buried it. They scrubbed it from textbooks. They threatened survivors into silence. They literally removed it from official records for over 75 years. And the crazy part? It didn't happen in some distant century. It happened in 1921, in an American city, in broad daylight. And the people who did it faced zero consequences. Not one. It's 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And there's a neighborhood called Greenwood. This wasn't a struggling neighborhood. This was Black Wall Street. Greenwood had its own hospital, its own law firms, its own banks, its own hotels, theaters, and grocery stores. The money stayed inside the community, circulating up to 36 times. Greenwood wasn't just surviving, it was winning. And that, right there, is exactly why it had to be destroyed. On the night of May 31st, 1921, a young black man named Dick Rowland stepped into an elevator. The elevator operator, a white woman named Sarah Page, screamed. Nobody knows exactly what happened in that elevator. To this day, nobody knows. Sarah Page herself later refused to press charges. But that scream was all it took. By the next morning, Tulsa was at war. And not the kind of war you're imagining. This wasn't a riot. This was a coordinated, organized, military-style assault. White mobs, some of them deputized on the spot by local law enforcement. They torched homes while families were still inside. They shot people in the streets. And then they started shooting from airplanes. Let that land. Aircraft. In 1921, over an American city, firing down into a neighborhood of American citizens. This was 18 years before World War II, and it was happening in Oklahoma. In less than 16 hours, over 35 square blocks were gone. 1,256 homes burned to the ground. Hospitals, schools, churches, law offices, all of it ash. Between 100 and 300 people killed. The real number has never been confirmed. Some historians believe mass graves exist in Tulsa to this day, still unexcavated. Over 10,000 people were left homeless overnight. The survivors were arrested. Not the attackers, the survivors. Thousands of black Tulsans were rounded up and held in detention centers. To get released, they needed a white Tulsan to vouch for them. In their own city. After their homes had just been burned down. Insurance companies denied every single claim. Not most. Every single one. Oklahoma removed the Tulsa Race Massacre from its official curriculum. Survivors who tried to speak out were threatened. The official Tulsa City Commission report wasn't completed until 2001. 80 years later. 80 years. That's not an accident. That's a choice. There are people alive today whose grandparents survived this. Imagine your family losing everything in one night, and then being told for the rest of your life that it basically didn't happen, that the history books had no room for it. That's not ancient history. That's 3 generations ago. Despite everything, Black Tulsans rebuilt. The community that America tried to delete refused to stay deleted. Then came urban renewal in the 1960s, and a highway. The same pattern repeated in black neighborhoods across America. from Memphis to Los Angeles to Miami. Highways built not around communities, but through them. By the time most Americans heard the words Black Wall Street from an HBO show in 2019, the neighborhood had been gone for decades. The knowledge had been suppressed for nearly a century. This isn't just a Tulsa story. It's a story about what gets remembered and what gets erased, about who decides which parts of history are worth teaching, about how a country can commit an act of mass destruction against its own citizens and just not talk about it. The Tulsa Race Massacre was finally added back to Oklahoma's curriculum in 2020. It only happened because people refused to let it stay buried. Every single person who lived in Greenwood had worked for what they had, built it from the ground up in a system designed to stop them at every turn. The most prosperous Black community in American history was destroyed precisely because it was prosperous. And for nearly a century, the official story was silence. Tonight, when you look up American history, you're going to find the stories they decided to keep. The battles, the presidents, the founding documents. But underneath all of that, buried under decades of deliberate silence, there are entire cities, entire communities, entire chapters of this country that got erased by the people who had something to lose by telling the truth. Greenwood wasn't an anomaly. It was a warning. And for 80 years, nobody was allowed to hear it. Now you have.
Please? See you next time!